Good morning from Montpelier.
Bonjour.
Morning.
Hi, Rob.
Hello.
When you said you were heading south for something yesterday, how far
Oh,
south?
just down to Randolph. I thought we were
Oh,
going
Rob.
all the way down to Manchester, Dorset area, which is where my brother-in-law lives. But we decided to meet halfway.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, I just talked to some people who did a little camping on the Batten Kill in Arlington, and it was great down there.
Pretty day.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Of course, I'm just visiting.
Right. You just wait a moment to see, or I don't recall whether Tom Koch had a conflict with this morning. Let's see here.
So just while we're waiting, I saw that Mia sent around the color-coded version of my map. I just want to note that this is actually not the latest version of my map. It was the one previous to the cleaned up version of the map. It's not a big deal. There's just a couple little things like, the reason I noticed is because it has the Stowe Cambridge match pictured here, whereas I fixed that. So it's just actually, Cambridge goes in with that little bit of Fairfax under the river. And there might be a couple other little things, but it shouldn't be a major problem if you want to understand what I had going on in my head.
Well, let me call the meeting to order. If you would, and that would tee up, I guess, a review of the minutes for the committee meeting. I'm sorry, for the board meeting of last Monday, October 4, 9 to 11 a.m. And minutes were also kept of the public work session that afternoon, where at least most of the time there was a quorum of board members present. Chris, or Eric, I note that in section 4 of the minutes under agenda item 4, in one place, the spelling of Huntington is creative.
Yeah, Eric.
Got it. I can make that correction.
Okay, we should correct that. And then I didn't have any other additions or correction. Does anyone else have any, or someone willing to make a motion to adopt the minutes that's posted with that spelling correction?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. So Mr. Roper moves to adopt the October 4 meeting minutes for the 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. board meeting. Is there a second? Is someone? Come on.
I'll second.
Jean, the second is, thank you, Jean.
I also have a comment. I don't see it. I don't see this posted on the web, on our website. The minutes.
And I can't find them anywhere.
Yeah.
Me too. let me just see here, folks. I think you are correct.
Well, then I have a suggestion. If they haven't been posted and if not everyone has read them, I think we should defer action.
Let's do that.
Okay.
We'll get those up on the web today, and I will circulate either the link or the minutes themselves to the board.
Okay,
If I'm incorrect, what was warned on the agenda for today was review and approval of the September 27th meeting minutes.
Eric, I think what happened with this is that we were moving too fast. And at least I was. And when I gave you some direction on the agenda for today's meeting, by basing it on the agenda for the October 4 meeting, I either overlooked something or made an assumption that I shouldn't have made, and that was to update the agenda item number 2 to refer not to the September 27 meeting minutes, which I think we approved last Monday, but instead to the October 4 meeting minutes. And I think everything else would have stayed the same for that agenda, and that was just, I'll take responsibility for that. So I think the agenda should probably be corrected in item number 2 to refer to the minutes of October 4. And since those haven't been fully posted, we'll defer action on those minutes and the work session minutes until our next board meeting.
We'll get those all up on the website today.
Right. I think this is what we have been moving from slowly over the last 12 months from a sort of a long distance race towards more of a sprint. And we're still getting in shape for the sprint. So that brings us to the public comment portion, which is for public comment as defined in Vermont Statute Title I, Section 312H. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the board at this time? Mr. Bristow Johnson, you may have
Hi,
3 minutes to visit with us here.
I'll be as quick as possible. I want to thank you for letting me drop in on that working group meeting or whatever that was on Friday. And I took your advice and I went to a district builder, and I haven't figured everything out about it. The template that I started with was the same template that Rob Roper had. So it's a template with 643,077 people in it. But I did 2 things. I made a template for me for the Burlington redistricting of our wards with that same template. But the other thing I did is I have a suggested map, and I posted the link to it on the chat, that modifies the Burlington ward or the Burlington districts a little bit, as per what I was suggesting on Friday. The first thing, and I did send an email about it out just yesterday or the day before. I think it was yesterday. I sent an email out to the board members about it with my reasons. The reasons are kind of threefold. The first reason is that while ideally Burlington will have 10.43 representatives, that's how the arithmetic comes out in that. And I don't think it would hurt the citizens of Burlington at all to be slightly heavy, to be slightly underrepresented, and to have 10 representatives exactly for the city of Burlington, so that we don't straddle a city line with Winooski, which is what we do presently, and what also the new map, the current map from Rob did. And so I pushed that back to the river to Winooski, and then made adjustments of all 10 districts so that they're all heavy, but about the same amount of heavy. They're within 10%. That map exists. It's on the, I posted a link to it right there. You can take a look at it. And I changed nothing else other than moving the 2 Winooski wards back to the river and then readjusting the Burlington, the 10 Burlington wards. I changed nothing else. So another purpose was in the current map that we have that's in law now, and then also the new one that Rob was making, and unfortunately it's due to some badly drawn census blocks, but it turns out that a natural boundary between neighborhoods is Ethan Allen Park, and then also Letty Park and where the Hannaford Shopping Center is, or I think it's called the Ethan Allen Shopping Center. And if I made an adjustment, but there is one neighborhood that I mentioned before. It's where Moore Drive is and Moore Court and Ira Lane. They are south of Ethan Allen Parkway, but north of Ethan Allen Park. They are somehow put into a district that are a census block that is mostly Village Green, which is south of Ethan Allen Park. Village Green, you might know, is where Bernie lives and where some other, it's a different part of town anyway. And I just hope that we can separate that and put the line straight through Ethan Allen Park. And so everything north of Ethan Allen Park would be contained in the same neighborhood.
Robert, two quick comments. Thank you for this. And the best focus for this should really be when we send this out to the city council and the Board of Civil Authority in Burlington and the other towns. And secondly, every time redistricting has been done, there have been some localized anomalies that no one can figure out how to fix. So don't be surprised if you see a few of those scattered around the map.
There are. Then there's one more thing that I'd like to report, and this was discovered by Jay Appleton, who is our mapping specialist for the city, for the Department of Planning at the City of Burlington. There is a census block around UVM. In fact, it's the Redstone, 2 census blocks for the Redstone campus, in which which at least 1,200 people are in the wrong census block, and it makes a difference. There's a block that has Redstone Hall in it, and it's shown to have 1,238 people in it, and that's impossible. It maybe has 38 people in it. And then there's a census block that's south of Redstone Hall that has all of these dorms of the Redstone campus in it, and it's shown to have 300 people, 306 people. And in fact, it's really 1,506. And you should know about that. Jay Appleton knows about that. So the thing to do is to maybe contact Jay Appleton and get the skinny on that. But
okay.
And I think I may have mentioned the numbers, the census block numbers in that email. If you want, I'll put those numbers on the chat so that you know exactly what I'm talking about.
And then send us some contact information for Jay too. Thanks.
All right, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard from the public? I don't see any at this point. So we will close out that agenda item. And I can report on, I think I lost track last week of I did two, I think two, it might have been three public forums that were interesting over the last 10 days, at least. One at Middlebury College, sponsored by their local chapter of the American Association of Geographers. One for the League of Women Voters in the Burlington area. And those went well. People like when a board member comes and listens and gives a synopsis of what the purpose is of the apportionment board, how the process works, and where we are in our work plan. So as those continue to, those requests come in, I will let you know and try to spread the work, the participation in those around among board members. And likewise, if you get a request, please let me know so we can help you out maybe with some of the materials, presentation bullet points that I've been using. I think that would bring us to mapping efforts, but I want to put that aside for just a moment, and because I think it would be good to take this slightly out of order and see if Chris, if you can give us an update on what your office and staff have accomplished so far in terms of preparation for the distribution of the board's tentative House redistricting proposal that we are on the verge of needing to distribute.
Sure, thanks, Tom. We are currently planning to send this out electronically to every town. And we would do that by sending to every town clerk and to every chair of the governing body for each city or town. Thank you to VLCT for providing us with that list, which we didn't have. We do maintain the list of the town clerks. So our hope is by sending to every town clerk and every board chair, we've got sufficient coverage there to send out notice of the proposed map of the LAB once you all vote on what that proposed map is. We would also post to MuniNet, which is the UVM listserv that many local officials are on and monitoring. We would also do a press release to make sure everybody's well aware that the proposed map is out there. Our hope is to do that on Monday next week. If the board can vote on a map this week, that would give approximately 4 weeks to November 15th, which was the target date. Maybe not approximately, maybe exactly 4 weeks for the BCAs to consider the proposed map and provide feedback. By law, they need at least 21 days to consider. This would give them 28, which would be great. So as part of that notice, there would be several links in that email notice to materials on the LAB website, as well as direct links right in there to say, here is the proposed map. And we'll want to know from the board today what the requirements are for that map. So I'm assuming it'll be in Maptitude. It'll be of sufficient detail that each town can go take a look and know exactly where their district lines are for whatever town or city they are in. It will provide a link for a feedback form. We're building a web form for them to provide feedback. It's based on what went out in 2011 for a feedback form, which says which district are you commenting on, when did your BCA meet, which district or districts would you like to remain unchanged, or which ones you're happy with, which ones are you not happy with, and describe in sufficient detail any proposed changes that you would make to the proposed, to the lab's proposed district. We can also link to resources about census data, population. I think that's just about it. Tom, I don't know if you can think of anything else from last time around that you wanted included in that notice, but we would draft that notice this week and make sure at least the board chair, if not the whole board, gets a chance to take a look at it and make sure it contains all the information that the LAB wants sent to towns about the proposed map and any information they need to consider it and provide meaningful feedback to the LAB.
Yeah, I'll send around the memo, the cover memo to everyone that we used in 2011 to the boards of civil authority. I'm also planning on drafting a memo to accompany that, which, among other things, will articulate that the localized changes, if a town identifies changes that it believes should be made to the tentative map for that suit its suits it better, that since changes at a very local level have a clear impacts beyond a particular town or proposed district, that the board is asking the towns to please be mindful of broader regional impacts of a town's preferred change to the tentative plan. But what we sent out 10 years ago is a form, as Chris said, a form that the BCAs will send back to us. We'll send them a map of the proposed district for that town, a spreadsheet with the 2020 census population figures for all of the towns in Vermont, a spreadsheet. I think we can do this with the description of the towns, the population and deviation for each proposed district, a link to the reapportionment statutes and contact information for the Secretary of State's office and for the Apportionment Board. Those will also be posted online and publicly available.
So just to be clear, Tom, 10 years ago, that was it appears, was a mailed packet of information. It was a mass operation here when the board and the Secretary of State's office had a normal timeline and a full summer to put a packet together for each individual board. Given the timeline we're working with, given that it's 10 years later and most everything is online, our proposal here is to do all of this electronically, link to all the same information that you're talking about from 10 years ago. Let the boards help them, or the towns and the BCAs help themselves to that information online if we point them in the right direction and give them adequate instructions, and stand by if any of them need assistance. We'll offer that as far as printing or providing a hard copy, but we really don't have the time to produce a mailing, put that in the mail, get it to all the towns, snail mailing, and have that all come back by paper. Just wouldn't give enough time in the process for everyone.
Right.
So the plan is to do a fully digital notice and an offer of help if any of the towns have issue with it or struggle with it.
Right. And so that, thank you, Chris, and Mia and Eric and your other colleagues who are helping with this. This is the kind of work that if the state did this every 3 years, we'd have it down to more of a routine. And when you do something every 10 years, it's not a routine. I've been in reaching out to various board members over the last 3 or 4 days, and having some one-on-one conversations about how we're going to get to the tentative House redistricting proposal. And it has struck me that we currently have three fairly well-developed House district map proposals. One from Jean Albert that has single member and 2-member districts, and one each from Jeremy and Rob, which are all single member districts. And I've discerned that there is not going to be unanimity on the board in terms of a choice between single member districts and a map with single and 2-member districts. And I further have thought that it might be a better decision-making if we could boil that down to a choice between one single member proposal and the other proposal. And apologize for the phone ringing from one of my regular junk call correspondents. So I suggested to Jeremy and Rob the possibility that they could get together with help from others as available, and try to form a combined or joint single member district map, and that would then bring up for a vote between that and the map that Jean has been working on. That's certainly not the only way of doing it, however. And I think the threshold question is, are the maps ready to be voted on, or are there still some areas in each draft map that need some work, either in terms of population deviations or other aspects where the map maker is simply not completely satisfied or happy with how it looks right now. So I'll throw that out onto the floor to see what you all think about that idea, keeping in mind that based upon the schedule that we have tentatively agreed upon, in the best case scenario, we were going to be taking a vote on a tentative map proposal today. And if that isn't in the cards, to try to do it later in the week, so that we could get the materials completed and out to the towns, to give the towns up to 28 days to respond. So, Jeremy, you are recognized.
Thank you very much. So what I guess what I would like to do is I'd like to continue sitting down with Rob and any other board members that want to go and finish up the collaboration that we started on Friday, that we didn't because of time constraints, because we didn't get through it, but we got through, I don't know how much of the state, the bottom third, I think, maybe the bottom third. and we could come back and vote on it once we have something a bit more solid. And we were incorporating some of the, I don't want to say multi-member districts necessarily, but we were identifying places that we were requesting, we were thinking about, we'd come back to it later, or we would ask towns for feedback about how things should be divided. And we were leaving it open to the possibility of, 2-seat districts. But I thought we were making some pretty decent progress, and I would like to continue along that path and come back to a vote later. I don't know if we could have it done today. I think we probably could if we just headed into it and started it now-ish. So I think one of the options that we could do is, depending on everybody's schedule, to avoid having to rewarn a meeting, we could recess this into a time and place certain, et cetera, go work on this and come back when folks have time this afternoon to look at it, review it, discuss it, or recess to some other time later this week, but have it done sooner than the absolute latest time next Monday.
Right.
I'm good with that. Or any other thing that, any other scheduling that works out between now and Friday to have a vote.
Jane,
Yes, thanks. So I do appreciate the effort at collaboration. I just find it way too crunched, given the amount of time that we have to do it. I find we just kind of did a speed treatment, which was interesting, that it was possible to kind of proceed that way, but I never felt that I had enough time to really think about any of the decisions we were making. Just kind of, okay, those numbers work, let's move on. That just doesn't have enough thought involved for me to feel comfortable about the process. So I feel like in a way that's probably where we might end up after the towns have a chance to review whatever proposal we vote out of the board this week, whenever that happens, assuming it happens this week. That is, we may be in a position where we start thinking of the different pieces of maps that, as we get more feedback from towns, we may end up in a place like that, but perhaps with a little more ability to be thoughtful. So I'm not saying people aren't being thoughtful, don't want to accuse anyone of anything, but I personally feel that the effort to cobble together something in the interest of some amount of collaborative effort, but at the pace we would have to do it, I'm not really confident.
and well, it's a good goal to give the towns more than the statutory 21 days if the product that we send to them is not ready for prime time quite. That extra time might not be as valuable to them as 3 weeks with a work product in the form of a tentative proposal that is in better shape. So remind me, Chris, of the 21 days. And then this also ties in clearly to how much time the board has to pull together a final proposal and adhere to our statutory deadline. But if we took a final vote on the 18th of October, just to push it, and if you were making good progress with the rest of the package, when do you think, and if the final version of the map were ready maybe prior to the 18th, when might you be ready, Chris, to hit send to the town clerks?
I think we can have just about everything ready to go prior to Monday. The real challenge, I think, is getting the map into Maptitude and into the shape that we need it for towns to find it useful when they look at it online.
Right.
So I think we can have most everything ready to go in advance of Monday. But the sooner we have the final proposed map.
Sure. Well, Jeremy, I thank you for your suggestion and Rob for your support for that.
But if I could just jump in, I hear what Jeannie's saying, actually, about the, a lot. What we were doing was sort of a speed map on Friday, and I think we had some good stuff in there. But maybe a way to have a collaborative map instead of sort of starting at the bottom and just going up to the top as if you were starting a new map. Because I know that a lot of these districts I put a lot of thought into, and I'm sure Jeannie put a lot of thought into some of her districts, and I'm sure Jeremy put a lot of thought into the districts on his map. Maybe we should just take a step back and say, look, let's look at all these districts that we think work really well, either because they're single town, single member districts, or because they don't change anything from the previous map. So we shouldn't have so much controversy unless it's like Huntington that has testified that they want to change. Things that just work out a little bit better than they did, and take all the good stuff from the three maps and say, this is where I think my map is working great, and this is where I think my map might have some shortfalls. And if we can put all the good stuff in there and then work around the shortfalls and try and improve them, that might be a more thought, that might end up with a product that's a little bit more thoughtful about how the school districts works, how the road works, how the geography works, than just starting at the bottom and going to the top. Does that make sense, Jeannie?
I mean, I think that could work. I guess what I'm saying is I see this week as we don't really have time for that anymore. I mean, maybe we do, depending on how much time, people actually have, but I guess, and that certainly seems better maybe than just kind of working up the map, a brand new one. I guess my view mostly would be, I would like to see all the maps people have created in the same format as a starting point, which we've never had. So in other words, looking at, say, a map in Maptitude that shows the deviations right on the map and the towns, and just whatever we decide are the most important information to be looking at when we're looking at the maps, so that we can then maybe even think about something that Rob's talking about. That is, where do they differ? How do they differ? So far, we haven't really been able to do it in a way that is very, makes it as easy as possible to make comparisons. So whether we end up deciding to cobble together a combined map or not, or we just stick with our individual maps, or maybe what Tom was suggesting, a collaborated single member district map and the map I have, which has both. Whatever we end up voting on, I still think a good starting point would be having our alternatives right now in a format that makes them easier to compare.
I don't disagree, but I don't know if we have time to put my map in Maptitude. And I apologize for that, but earlier in the meetings, we decided that we could use District Builder and it would get translated later. If that's not the case, then I apologize for.
No, I don't think you need to apologize, Rob. I think we also for some time believed that there was a way to convert a District Builder map to a Maptitude map without too much ado. And I believe we've been advised that that is not the case, or at least we haven't figured it out that it can be done that way. My own sense after hearing this is, I think it may still be with the time constraints, better to get a single maptitude version of one district only map done. It's some, some hybrid or version of the Rob and Jeremy maps. So I think just getting that done, and without trying to also take the best out of Gene's map and making a three-way hybrid, I don't think we have time to do that. And I think that is the effort that we can work on once we get the town boards of civil authority feedback in hand, to yield a synthesis of all of the work that our members have done so far, as informed by what the BCAs tell us. And I would trust Jeremy and Rob to work that through as best you can with whatever input others may have or you may request from others. And if that could be done, let's say, by the end of tomorrow, and circulated in Maptitude, then that would seem to, and then if we gave board members Wednesday, maybe we could schedule a meeting for Thursday or Friday to take that vote and pretty much stay close to our schedule.
So Tom, are you saying you'd like to see 2 Maptitude maps, one a Gene map, one a Rob/Jeremy map for the boards to compare on Wednesday? For the board to compare on Wednesday?
If that's doable, yeah, I think that will. I mean, there is a good faith and honest, I think, disagreement over the single member district only approach. And I think the way to bring that to a head is to have one map from each and just take an up or down vote and then move on, and then be prepared to, as I said a moment ago, synthesize all of that in light of the feedback we get from the boards of civil authority. And maybe in the meantime, I wouldn't say take a week off, but step back for a while the towns get into this, understanding that we may be called upon to give some input to various towns along the way. So is that a fair and sensible suggestion?
Sure, if it works with Jeremy's schedule, I can make it work with mine.
Yeah, I'm basically free all day today. I kind of allocated today knowing that this was likely to take a longer amount of time than just 9 to 11 today. So whatever works for you. And I have a little bit of time tomorrow afternoon, but yeah, today's good.
It makes sense to me too. Thank you, Tom. I did have a question that is related, that gets to a comment Mia has put in the chat about timeliness and also just in general making sure that the requests we have regarding preparations that need to be made on the tech side get there in a timely manner. So I wondered if Mia is there, if you'd be able to just give us a specific amount of time so we know how much lead time you'd need for certain types of things. that'd be really helpful.
Unfortunately, Jean, I cannot. It's, it really depends on what is delivered to me. If, for instance, let's say I receive a map that is a final map that's been prepared in Maptitude and it's essentially ready to go, then I can start working with VCGI immediately on preparing the final piece that's going to be published on our website and distributed to VCAs. And then the lead time is probably, around a day. Well, let's say I receive a map that is not complete, or the map needs to be reconstructed in Maptitude, then the timeline gets sufficiently or significantly longer. So, I apologize, but it really depends on the state of what I receive as far as how long it takes me to put that together and get it out the door. And
Right.
the other complication is that we are working with multiple teams, and so we need to coordinate those efforts and be conscious of their timelines as well.
Right. I guess just from a practical standpoint, if maybe if I just narrow it down to the assumption that we have we get by, let's say by Wednesday, if maybe I'm doing some final tinkering with my map, and Rob and Jeremy have been working on a map for single member districts, and they both arrive to you by Wednesday in Maptitude, assuming they're complete. Getting those to be in a shareable format that the board can then review. How long would that take, do you think?
If we're looking at by close of business on Wednesday, we have 2 completed maps in Maptitude, and we simply need those and by shareable, I assume you mean just online, accessible online.
Yeah, or physical copies, whatever, like a printed, 11 by 17, these nice bigger ones, but either one doesn't matter, just to be able to review them.
Yeah, so if we give the printed copies are kind of the purview of VCGI. So if we give our team and their team a business day to put that together, we should be able to have, if we have completed maps in Maptitude by close of business on Wednesday, we could have all the materials you need in your hands by close of business on Thursday.
Okay, that's helpful, thanks. And then just one last thing, which is just the other direction. I think because I was added to the board as a late member to replace a prior member, I seem to have dropped off some email lists. So I'm just putting out a general request, if you're sending a group list, to check that I'm on it. That's all. Mostly it's, I just don't want to miss something. Now that we're down to, something arrives and needs action within a short period of time, I want to make sure I'm getting it.
Absolutely. And my sincere apologies about that omission on Friday. I don't like working in haste because haste tends to make mistakes, but we will do our very best to avoid those in the future.
Yeah, and maybe with respect to this incoming from Mia, when we do receive it, Jean, we should all acknowledge by return email time of receipt, so that Mia knows it's not only gone out, but people have got it, and I'd like to know that as well. That sounds to me like a game plan, and for my part, I'm going to continue to work on these other materials and the narrative, and we did send Stephen, Chris and I collaborated on this, and I think he sent it out last week, a second notice to all the town clerks and the MuniNet folks that this was coming. So they've gotten that message now twice directly from the Secretary of State's office, so that there should be a high very high percentage of towns that are anticipating this and making plans for when they receive it. I don't think we have anyone, so I'm perfectly willing to close out this meeting quite early to free up that time for the further mapping work that needs to be done. I don't think we have any updates coming in from Legislative Council or VCGI today. We've heard from the Secretary of State's office. I guess my only other business, were you shaking your head in agreement, Mr. Chernick?
I was shaking my head. No, there are no updates today and
Okay.
concurring. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. The only other business I would throw out there is to remind us all that we have to get back to the Senate map. That's not going to take care of itself, but with all of the exercising we've been getting with our mapping muscles, I'm hopeful that because there are fewer moving parts, that won't be quite as challenging as this. Is there anyone on the board have anything else for other business or to add to this discussion?
Are we planning to reconvene, or do we make a proposal for another meeting this week, later in the week?
I think we should, how about this same time Friday morning?
That works for me.
Okay.
And Tom, we have warned a work session for Wednesday at 3 p.m. I don't know if the board wants to keep that or.
Let's keep that, you never know.
Okay.
So Jeremy, how would you like to do this? Should we just stay online after the meeting's closed? I could drive up to Burlington if that's more convenient for you, whatever you want to do.
Well, I mean, you drive wherever you can get a computer. I mean, I'm happy to stay on here too. I mean, I don't want to necessarily monopolize, Chris's time or the Secretary of State's office time,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I was thinking that was my thought.
We can just leave it running if you guys want to keep on talking. This won't be.
So I mean, whatever's easiest for you, Rob. I mean, I'm here at my computer at home, and I have everything up, ready to go. Just tell me what works for you.
Well, why don't we start here, because that'll save me a 30-minute drive home.
Lovely.
A time otherwise wasted, and maybe we'll take a break for lunch,
And
and I'll go home for that.
if that's going, if that's going to be just the two of you, I think the board can stand in adjournment, and you will be able to work one-on-one with each other just fine. And thank you all. We'll stand in adjournment.
Thanks. Do you want me to create another meeting, Rob, or do you just want to leave this as is?
I guess we can leave it as is. I'll defer to Chris.
I think that's fine. Unless you'd rather do that, Jeremy. Eric will just keep the meeting running, or you can do another meeting.
This is fine, Eric. If you could just give me presenter rights so I can share my screen.
I absolutely can. Do y'all want me to keep the recording rolling?
We don't have a quorum. It doesn't matter to me either way. There's nothing magical about what we're doing or secret. So Chris or Eric, I'll let you make that decision whether you want to keep it running or not.
I don't think we need to record it, Eric.
Okay.
All right. Good luck. There.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much.
I'm gonna close that door.
Actually, I'm gonna use the men's room before we get started.
Jeremy, I guess since I'm no longer the host, I can't. If you want to stop the recording, you can hit the stop recording. You're more than fine to leave it running too. It's up to you if you think it'd be of interest to the public.
Okay, I don't, where do I stop? Stop recording.